The Democrats and the Republicans are in on this U.S. Supreme Court ruling together. Allegedly. You know, the one where the U.S. Supreme Court now said you could spend an endless amount of money on your campaigns. Now, why would the Democrats and the Republicans be okay with this together? Because they both have one enemy that's coming to the light right now. Socialist Democrats or grassroots candidates that are just like Mamdani. You haven't heard they're winning all over the nation. Even the ones who aren't winning, they're getting third place. And that hasn't happened before with independents.
All right, this is a Fox News alert. Incumbent Congressman Dan Goldman, who was just banned from a New York City coffee shop because of his support for Israel. He has now lost his primary to a radical socialist backed by Mamdani. It appears that, a pretty scary transformation is now fully underway in the Democratic Party, especially in a blue state like New York.
Dang, it's almost like the people are telling you what their values are by voting.
Do you think it's possible a democratic socialist platform can translate into something that's electorally viable in a statewide election or a national election, given that, according to Gallup, many older and rural voters still have issues with the label socialist?
You know, what I find is that New Yorkers ask me less about how I describe my politics and more about whether my politics includes them. And I think what we can see is that a democratic socialist politics is one that should be judged on its delivery, like any ideology. And what we're showing in this city is we can pursue the big things like universal child care and do the pothole politics at the same time.
Scott Jennings crashes out over socialism, but he doesn't even know what it is and makes himself look totally foolish.
TVA, where I'm from, East Tennessee, was built by socialism. The TVA was built by it. Oak Ridge was built by it. Factories were built by it. Alcoa
built by socialism?
America, absolutely. Government workers, 90% of the people that built those
having
things.
A government is not the same as having socialism.
Well, so if it's not the government doing the work and the government building things for the people and it's keeping ownership of it, if that's not what socialism is, then what is it? You tell me. If it's not direct employees building the...
So you're saying any level of or any amount of government is socialism.
I think your guys are, actually.
You have a whole faction of your party called Democratic Socialists of America who are running on things well beyond basic government services. They're running on absolute and total radical anarchy that is antithetical to the American.
Let me ask you. I think there's this boogeyman that is obviously being created by the right when you look at what they're advocating for. You could use the name Democratic Socialist and try to create this red scare, but I think you're looking at an era of young people who were born after the Cold War, and they look at a candidate like Zora Mamdani, or they look at a candidate like Graham Plattner, they're saying, maybe we do need child care that's more affordable, because right now in many parts of the country, child care is more than mortgage for a lot of Americans, and the building behind John is doing nothing about it. They said nothing about it all year.
Let's have the debate
nothing about it.
We need to understand that our country has the power to flip the entire board at will. Yep. And one of the ways we can access that power is through this social media shit. There's so much disinformation on it, but movements like that only happen because we all understand what's been happening in the globe. We all understand what the implications are back home, and we've been keeping in contact with that through this phone, and these Democrat niggas have been trying to ignore it. You're trying to ignore it, you will end up dispossessed of power and sitting on your fucking couch before you know what hits you, because these niggas are now alive. Democratic socialism is now like a mainstream American political thought. So that, I don't care where you are, niggas have to try it now.
It's on the table. And that's all we needed.
On the heels of Abdul El Sayed winning, on the heels of Mamdani winning, one of the things that we're seeing is this continued pushback about democratic socialists. And we're starting to see more and more victories around the country. We are seeing incumbents get pushed out. And this has the Democratic Party and the Republican Party scared. Because if people realize that there are people who are actually out there to help them, then the whole system crashes. The system that they've been protecting, it all falls apart. Establishment Democrats are the ones that need to be put on their asses. I'm going to show you that the Democratic establishment has been trying to stop this movement that's been happening. I want you to hear more of the voices of Zoran Mamdani and also Abdul El Sayed, because I believe what they're talking about is a new hope, something that we should be looking forward to. And also, I also want to highlight other progressive Democrats who are out there who are fighting that you may not know that they're fighting for you. In order for something to change, we have to do something different. We can't keep electing the same people in there and think things are going to change. And if your vote didn't count, they wouldn't be working so hard to take it away from you. We have much to discuss. Let's strap in. Let's get after it.
The election in 2024, that report. So do you remember that investigation by the DNC to figure out why Democrats lost the election in 2024? That report that the DNC now refuses to release. It's coming out from those inside the inner circles that, of course, it said that our position on supporting the country that starts with an I was one of the primary reasons Democrats lost.
And I think if I was a moderate, what I would be thinking about is, how can I actually change and offer voters something new? And how can I develop an actual philosophy that is not just a triangulation of the political spectrum? Because I think that's part of the reason it sounds like these moderates don't believe at all in what they're saying, because they're constantly recalculating, well, what's the middle of the political spectrum? And that political spectrum is constantly. Meanwhile, candidates like Zoran Mamdani and others around the country are delivering for their constituents. Let's not forget, the establishment was losing their mind when Leaders We Deserve, for example, came in and spent $300,000 as one of the largest on campaign. And everybody was saying that he's going to be on every piece of Republican mail this November, and it's going to destroy our chances. And look at where we are. He is now one of the most popular, if not consistently the most popular elected official, not just in New York, but in the United States of America.
Talk about this idea of electability. Let me be clear. The last people who have any right to lecture us about electability are the establishment who lost to Donald Trump.
I look at somebody like Mamdani, and regardless of his delivery, which may be off-putting, particularly from somebody coming from your side, is that he's delivering, man. You know what? I mean, he's really delivering. You know, like I saw somebody going after Mamdani for some of this stuff, and particularly about rent control, you know. And I was like, well, how do you think the middle class was built after World War II and the GI Bill and rent-controlled buildings that created those communities that we were talking about an hour ago? Created the availability for somebody that was 26 years old, that had a job with the MTA, to be able to live and work in the city and put the kid in a school with the idea that they would be safe walking there. That's what I see him trying to do. I mean, by the way, it's just so tired and, you know, ridiculous. He's a communist, like it's about the communists. Like, who even says that anymore?
There was an important point that was brought up in that last segment. The establishment Democrats are the problem because they do not want to hold themselves to a higher standard. We keep getting these tests by Democrats to say that they're better than Republicans, yet they take money from the same people the Republicans do. They answer to the same people the Republicans do. And everyone sees that shit. And we see how feckless they are when it comes to certain things. We see them capitulate to the Republicans, and the Republicans never capitulate to Democrats. They never go across the aisle to work with the Democrats. Yet the Democrats try to work across the aisle with them. They like to call them their friends. Anybody who follows the ideologies of Trump and MAGA, to me, in my opinion, are morally bankrupt. Because when it stopped being about policies, when it stopped being about all American people, when it stopped being about helping the least among us instead of just helping out the corporations and the elites, already lost me. You already lost the argument. And this is why you're starting to have this backlash against the establishment Democrats. Because, again, they had victory in their hands. Hell, there's an argument to be made that Kamala just stood up against It's Not Real. She might have won that election. She might have gotten the extra couple 100,000 votes she needed to overtake Donald Trump. But we'll never know.
$40 million spent to stop him. 60 days in, 68% of New York City views him favorably, more popular than the day that he won. And this is really interesting to me because most brands lose loyalty the moment that they finally earn it. A lot of leaders are obsessed with getting attention, but Mamdani is now obsessed with what comes after that. Number one, the promised architecture. Universal childcare, critics called it a fantasy, but day 8 as a mayor, press conference with the governor, $1.7 billion committed, specific timeline attached. 2-year-olds covered this fall, expanding annually until universal. What did we have there? Promise, result, timeline, 8 days. Attention without follow through just trains your audience to stop believing you. So let's talk about number 2, the receipts loop. 12 executive orders in 1 week, junk fees targeted, subscription traps banned, the Williamsburg Bridge bike ramp, a city running joke for years, fixed publicly on camera alongside dot workers. The customer or the audience who forgot the promise will not remember that you kept it. The receipt is half the strategy. The takeaway here for you is who in your audience needs to see and not just hear that you came through.
If today you and I were to introduce the idea of a building that lends out books for free, we would be slandered in the same way that so many new ideas are slandered today. And yet that's the library. And the same thing with the fire department, the same thing with public schools. And it's to say that a lot of politics has been a debate about who deserves what. And I would prefer a politics that debates how we can deliver that to everyone.
In D.C., Janice Lewis George's opponent for the mayorship keeps calling her the Zoran of D.C., which is funny because he thinks that's going to hurt her campaign. Sorry, if even your opponent is calling you Zoran, I'm running to the polls. I interviewed Janice about the stigma around the term democratic socialism. Of course, the same people are doing hit pieces on her that did hit pieces on Zoran. She just can't win because she's too left. Here's what she had to say.
The everyday resident who is struggling to afford housing or utilities, childcare, they're not interested in these labels. Nothing is radical about wanting affordable housing and healthcare. Nothing's radical about universal access to childcare. Nothing is radical about solving the inequities we see in health and education, right? These are persistent issues that Martin Luther King, another democratic socialist, said was important for our nation to address.
1, 2, 3. Fuck you! And by they, I do mean, but I'm not here to play that card because it's some of us too. So when that boy Mamdani came out on the scene, this nigga is a Muslim. So after seeing those clips, I had to ask myself, what is making these niggas so mad? Well, then I went and looked.
Our housing plan meets this crisis with the scale and urgency it demands. The first plank of our plan is all about building. Over the next decade, city government will build 200,000 new, affordable, rent-stabilized homes. Second, I am proud to announce that we will preserve and stabilize an additional 200,000 homes. And they will be made possible by historic $22 billion capital investment over 5 years.
And I know y'all have the attention span of a rock, so I'm just going to get straight to the point. There's a point in this plan that has the landlords pissed off.
Through our new citywide campaign, Fix the City, we will focus on the worst landlords in New York City. When necessary, we will take aggressive legal action to remove negligent owners and property managers.
And because of that, they're claiming that Zoran Mamdani is coming for their property. But when it comes down to it, this is what the people voted for. He said he was going to do this, and he's doing it.
I'm a former white Christian nationalist. I was MAGA before MAGA was MAGA. This past weekend, I was afforded the opportunity to go to Mayor Zoran Mamdani's 100-day address in New York City. I flew there from Florida, and I went there because I wanted to get a better understanding of democratic socialism, a political ideology that's been around for decades. Bernie Sanders, now Mayor Zoran Mamdani, is proudly announcing that that's what he is and that's what he will govern by. A ideology for the people, by the people. And what I'm here to tell you is what I witnessed in New York City was an experience that like I've never had before. It was magical. It was such a beautiful moment. It was filled with so much diversity. I say all the time that Trump did not make us racist, xenophobic, homophobic, transphobic, Islamophobic, misogynistic. Trump just gave a voice to the people who were already these things.
You know what Mamdani feels like to me is work from home. You remember work from home before the pandemic. Work from home, that's the craziest thing I've ever heard. This place would fall apart as a business if we just let people work from home. There'd be no more business. Capitalism would fail if we let people work from home. And then the pandemic hits. And then out of nowhere, everybody's working from home. And a lot of places seem to be staying open. They're even making some money. And you think back to that time in like 2019 when you asked if you could work from home and they said no. And you were like, oh, so you're a liar. And that's what Mamdani feels like. It's like politicians could have been doing this stuff the whole time. It turns out, like, Mamdani gets in and he's like, oh yeah, there's just a button. You just have to press this button and then stuff gets done. I don't know why nobody was pressing it before me. It's not like I'm some once-in-a-generation politician. I just saw the button and I pressed it, and the button was airing. It's like you press the do something button. If you press the care button, then something will happen.
What you just heard is the perfect example of if there's a will, there's a way. Too often, we've been told that, oh, we're going to do all of these things. And then, when we ask, why isn't none of the things that you all promised done? And it's like, well, we came up against some stuff, you know? I thought about how many times that I thought to myself, these people have the pulpit of the presidency, the bully pulpit. And yeah, they would say some things, but you know what they would never do? They would never get up and just call out the people to their faces. I mean, you know what I mean? I just felt like you had an opportunity to go in front of the American people and say, listen, I want to pass this thing. This is what it will do for you. This is how we're going to pay for it. This is how we want to implement it. And these people in the Senate won't vote for it. And I would call them out by name. See, but they're afraid, like, well, if I go ahead and say their name out loud, then they'll never work with us again. Well, look what's happening right now in this Trump administration. They don't give a damn if the Democrats come to the table. They just shame them until some of them do. They get on TV and say, well, the Democrats aren't doing the thing that we want to do that's going to hurt everybody. It's their fault. They're using that bully pulpit way better than corporate Democrats ever did. And I believe it's that kind of thing that pisses us all off.
Can you clarify for us what your position is on funding for Israel if you do become a U.S. Senator? Are you opposed to all funding for Israel, period, military funding?
I'm opposed to unconditional military aid for any country. That is Israel, yes, but that's also Egypt, where my family immigrated from. That's Pakistan, that's Saudi Arabia, that's UAE. And that's not because of a focus on what's happening anywhere except for a focus on what's happening here. We've got communities in my state where the median income is $14,000, and I believe they have a right to their tax dollars. I also believe in international law and upholding international law, and there are Leahy laws against dealing arms to countries who are engaged in human rights abuses, and I don't want to fund a foreign military that does genocide, apartheid, or has taken us to a war we don't need to fight. The issue that we have right now is that we don't have a real system of capitalism. What we have is corporate oligopoly masquerading as capitalism. So, for example, when you go shopping and you want to buy a pound of meat, there are 4 meat packers who pack that meat and account for about 70% of the entire market share. And all they do is use algorithms to just systematically inflate the price of a pound of meat, which means that you don't have other options. You want to go see a show? It's Ticketmaster. You want to go on a flight? You have one of 3, 4, maybe 5 airlines who buy planes from one of 2 manufacturers. You don't have choices. Think about the thing you probably touch the most in your pocket, your phone. There are probably 2 phones that account for 90% of the phones, iPhones or Samsung, and on 3 carriers. And all of them are using algorithms to raise prices. So we need to bust up monopolies, and the way to do that is to actually empower the Federal Trade Commission to actually enforce the laws on the books and then take it a step further. I also believe that we need to stand with unions and pass the PRO Act. Why? Unions are the single most important feature to being able to protect broad-scale prosperity and wages for people.
I mean, I get Medicare for all, but I mean, we're from here to a million miles away from it.
A lot has changed since 2008. The power of the internet, if anything, is that I think a lot of people can see for themselves what's happening. They don't have to see it on TV. There aren't gatekeepers the same way that it used to be. And in the past, the way that the insurance industry used to beat us is that every time people would start talking about having health care, they would then carpet bomb the airwaves with ads. Very similar to the $19 million that's spent on one of my opponents already. There's an opportunity, I think, to end around the usual gatekeepers now. And then here's the other problem. Everything's just gotten harder and worse. I mean, you think about 2008 and how bad things felt in 2008. Now I want you to fast forward 2026. Think about the healthcare circumstances that you find yourself in. If you got good junior health care, that's amazing. But a lot of folks out there are paying a $6,000, $8,000 deductible on top of the $2,000 premium that they pay every month. And so a lot of folks are like, I'm sick and tired, and you can come hit me with every attack ad you want telling me about how great my healthcare is, and I know it's bullshit because I have to live with my healthcare. So part of the job for me is not just to have a conversation with the 99 other senators. Part of the job for me is to have a conversation with the 350 million people who elect all of us. And to do the work that a lot of times Democrats don't do, which is about persuading. Too often Democrats, they're taking money from the same corporations, and so they're very quick to accommodate what the corporations want. I'm not here to make peace with the corporation. I'm not. I'm here to get people health care. See what I mean?
This is the type of message that we need. There is so much to unpack here. And I didn't want to get too deep because we've already talked about Abdul El-Sayed in the previous video. But I want to start off with how the corporate media wants to give him a gotcha question. This is CNN. This is the same woman that Trump said was a nasty woman. And she doesn't smile. And she's doing that work, right? Making the president look foolish. And then at the same time, she's doing the work of the corporations by asking these same questions. Why is it that you're against? It's not real. You must be anti. Y'all know the word, all right? This is the thing that they do. The corporate Democrats are damn near on the same side as most of the Republicans. They are friends, but more importantly, they have the same boss. And so their interest is their own and not yours. And that's why when Abdul talked about corporations having these monopolies, I never understood that. If you look into your history books, and even when they taught us in school, they taught about the monopolies that were going on. They talked about the Gilded Age in the early 1900s. Here it is, 100 years later, and we're going through the same shit. The same man that is in office now told a bunch of people in my very state that he was going to protect their unions. And their unions back this man who actually is in favor of the corporations. And so you can literally look at a chart after you watch this video, and you can see as unions went down, so did the pay disparity, so did the gap, the wage gap rose as unions went down, because unions were the thing that actually got us the rights that we enjoy to this day. And they're all but extinct, just like pensions. All the things that made it where we could be prosperous has gone to the very top instead of to you and your family. So when he talks to, you heard the man in the audience. The man in the audience was like, well, we can't even worry about having Medicare for all because it's just impossible. It's that thinking right there is why nothing fucking changes. It's that thinking right there is why we've been limited. It's that thinking right there why when you pull the lever on the same politician you've been pulling the lever for, yet you can't name not one thing that person has helped change. Maybe they get a few earmarks for the state so they say they've done something, but you don't see the change to the country. And it's their job to not only take care of their constituents, but they also have a greater responsibility to that of the United States. If we want something to pass, then we need to actually go to the polls and put people in our local offices and our nationwide offices that are going to do the shit that we ask them to do, that we demand for them to do, because they work for us.
Look, I just got to say, you know your bill is bad and unpopular when on the year anniversary, when you're supposed to be celebrating it, you're changing the name of it. And I think the other thing that's so important is not only you changing the name of it, but the original name you gave it literally has the word beautiful in it. You put the word beautiful in it. And a year out, it's so unpopular that you have to change the name. They're calling it the Working Families Tax Cut.
I just want us to speak plainly and lay the facts out what's really happening in this committee. We are 1 week out from Bill and Hillary Clinton, who did not show up for their depositions. 1 week, and we're already having a markup to hold them in contempt. Meanwhile, the Department of Justice has been legally obligated to hand over the full unredacted Epstein files to this committee since August, the same exact subpoena that they are using to hold the Clintons in contempt. And please note that these resolutions are allowing the DOJ to prosecute the Clintons for the exact same things that the DOJ itself is violating.
We're living through the most corrupt presidential administration in American history. A $300 million ballroom, a $230 million payout from the Department of Justice because the president got his feelings hurt because he had to be investigated for being a criminal. Hundreds of thousands of taxpayer dollars spent at Trump-owned properties around the country, Trump-branded wine being sold at the Coast Guard exchanges, American taxpayer dollars being spent on DHS propaganda ads on Truth Social, awarding federal contracts to corporations in exchange for campaign contributions. Kash Patel flew his girlfriend around the country on a multi-million-dollar jet that taxpayers paid for. Kristi Noem gave companies she's affiliated with hundreds of millions of tax dollars, then went out and spent another $200 million on 2 private jets for her travel. For 12 months, this administration has been taking billions of taxpayer dollars from American people and have been giving it away to their own companies in the form of tax cuts, government contracts, or other government-funded subsidies.
Man-child of a president.
Not man-child.
Who today again woke up, you're right, with another tantrum and was able to double down on the sentiment that has been true every day that he's been there. He does not give a rat's ass.
Facts.
About Americans, about the cost of living, about whether we're able to afford it. And we know now there's a consistent theme. He could care less.
Come on now, y'all. Somebody have a backbone and tell me she lying. Majority of America already know Donald Trump don't give a damn about us. It's these other sheep that's having a hard time figuring it out.
You know, while he and all of his friends are in their continuing smash and grab.
Smash.
Where they have loot hanging all out of their pockets. He has enriched himself, enriched his family, enriched his friends, and can't do a damn thing for the American people.
It's about time that more people are starting to stand up to this guy. Like, how much more of this can the American people take?
I understand that Vice President Vance believes that shooting a young mother of 3 in the face 3 times is an acceptable America that he wants to live in, and I do not. And that is a fundamental difference between Vice President Vance and I. I do not believe that the American people should be assassinated in the street.
I gotta say, if you were making a list of 1,000 adjectives to describe this guy, masculine would not be one of them.
There's been a lot of talk in this race about what it means to be a real man. And recently on the campaign trail, I told the story of my adoptive dad, the man who gave me his last name, the man who raised me as his own. Every Saturday morning, Mark Tallarico would mow our lawn, whether it was rain or shine, whether he wanted to or not. He insisted on mowing our lawn himself. And then without anyone asking him to, he would go next door and mow our neighbor's lawn because our neighbor was elderly. She was a widow. And my dad never talked about it. He just did it because that's what a man does.
If the Dems get into power, are they going to do something about corruption? Yeah. Or are they going to reach across the aisle or whatever, I don't know terms to use?
I sure hope that I don't strike you as the kind of person who would shake hands with a fascist. Recently I went to an event. Joel Webbin was there. Very popular online Christian nationalist. Hates the fact that women can vote. Hates the fact that gay people can be alive. Giant piece of shit. I met Casey Putsch there for the first time, and he gave his speech right before me. And he did not talk about a single one of the points they were there to talk about. He mentioned at one point that he got a Lifetime Achievement Award from Donald Trump and Joe Biden, and he was more proud of the Joe Biden one because a white straight man never got anything from the left. Before that, he had bragged about his grandfather being in World War II and in Japan. So when I got up to speak, I also didn't address the points. I instead said that I am a white straight man and I am on the left. And I don't have to brag about my grandpa's military service because I got my own.
Would have given you some relief.
Would the gentlelady yield?
I will not. This is my time.
Would the gentlelady yield?
I will not yield. This is my time. And he's on his way out the door, and he needs to know exactly the harm he has caused. But the American people deserve to know.
About Obamacare.
I will not yield. Why are you speaking to me when I didn't yield to you? Correct your vote. You have gutted the CFPB. You have dropped settlements the CFPB brought against predatory companies that were supposed to provide relief to customers. $360 million to help people gone.
Why are you speaking to me when I did not yield to you? Did you see his body language?
Those were some very powerful words by some very outgoing, outspoken, and really passionate people. People who are passionate about saving this country. people who are passionate about calling out corruption, people who are passionate by calling out the double standards, people who are passionate by calling out terrible bills, people who are passionate of calling out the leaders who they themselves don't adhere to the things that they have said, who don't keep the promises that they have made. And so we need people who can speak. We need people who can go ahead and say the things that people are thinking. We need fighters in there. We don't need people who are their friends. We need people who have morals and standards and wouldn't dare call any of those people their friends if they are against people, or who claim to stand with the teachings of Jesus, denying what Jesus did by denying to doing it themselves. I wanted you to hear these voices, because if the voices that you hear aren't speaking out against everything going on, then I dare say those voices aren't really working for you.
But here's what has also come out. That two very powerful individuals running for president in 2028 demanded that that report not be released because they do not want to have to talk about it on the campaign trail and have that be the tough question that's repeatedly asked of them.
You know something that's simple for me regarding the presidency in 2028 and any potential Democratic candidate? And I'm talking about Gavin, Gretchen, Pirro, Bashir, Buttigieg, anybody else you think might throw their hat in the ring for 2028. Now, mind you, we got to get to 2026, the midterms. I understand. But we know these people, Democratic candidates, are positioning themselves right now for 2028. And I have this to say to them. You should right now be saying that you will dismantle every piece, component, and part of Project 2025, every piece of legislation, and every executive order associated with Project 2025. You should be saying that right now. That is my advice to you.
I believe that we have reached the tipping point. This is the point either where there's no turning back and things just go to shit and get far, far worse. Or this is the point where people wake the fuck up and realize that we've made a mistake and take things into our own hands to change the direction, because no one's coming to help us.
Stay vigilant, stay engaged, stay revolutionary.